Thank you for watching this heart reflection. And for those who don't know who I am, I'm Brother Sean, and I'm a member of the Teo community of Interfaith Franciscans. We are an online community at present where we gather for fellowship and support and prayer several times each day on the internet on our live stream channels. This short video is a heart reflection. I come to you from my heart. And it's taking a look at wallowing. What is wallowing? Do I wallow? How can we overcome wallowing? Is it productive or is it non-productive? But before we begin, would you indulge an old monk by allowing him read the entry prayer to your soul, your interior castle? Bless you. I cross the bridge into the silent bliss of my castle. I close the drawbridge and forbid all outside influences from entry into this holy place that is my soul. I am alone with God, and under God's light and companionship I discovered the depth and the beauty of my soul. I embrace the power of prayer. I open myself to divine guidance. I surrender myself to become as a channel for grace, healing and service as God directs my life. This beautiful prayer was given to us by Teresa of Avila, which she shared with her sisters. It's a blueprint. And doesn't it resonate with your heart? That when you come into the presence of God and invite the Spirit of God to come upon you, your heart is guided to switch off your mobile phone, disconnect temporarily from the dramas around you, and just come focused that you are coming to your soul, the gateway to God. But there is another lovely reflection I would like to share with you, which may bear some relevance. Remember, if you want to make progress on the path and ascend to the places you have longed for, the important thing is not to think much, but to love much. And so to whatever best awakens you to love. Not to think much, but to love much. Wallowing, I'm guilty of it, sadly. Not so much today, but certainly as a young man, and certainly in nursing, when I was training as a nursing monk. I wallowed. Poor me. Poor me. And then when I became mentally ill through the influence of Prozac, which was given as a prescribed drug to help me deal with the death and dying of a dear, dear friend that was like my blood brother, who was a fellow monk, who died age 42, and we were friends for 28 years. That was a hard one. That was a difficult time. A time of letting go. But I have to admit, I wallowed a lot in poor me. Why me? Oh, I went on and on and on. And in the end, I could understand now why so many drifted out of my life. But one good thing came out of that, in that it gave me an understanding of my illness. And it raised questions about the legitimacy of the drug Prozac, because in 1976, when it was prescribed, 1996, there was no anecdotal evidence to support or to say that there were adverse side effects. So I went on a journey. Yes, and I found a lot of information that explained my situation, why I had suicidal ideation and disinhibited, disassociated behavior. But I wallowed. Oh, sister, I wallowed. I became such an expert, as one thinks. I joined a Prozac survivors group, and what I learned there was just amazing. I was empowered to take responsibility for my life. And Ramo was a dear friend, and she too was a survivor, not a victim. The word victim really, to me, is wallowing in victimhood, whereas a survivor is a positive word. It means what it says. You are surviving the onslaught of all the symptoms of mental health issues. So I owe a lot to Ramo. But in becoming quite conversant with a lot of medical and mental health issues and being a trained nurse for all those years, 38, you become a bit of a self-inflicted guru, which can be your downfall. And I know from supporting clients who have mental health issues, you sometimes come across someone who is so skilled, in fact better skilled than the experts, than the psychiatrists and the psychiatric nurses. They know the ins and outs, they know how to dot their I's and stroke their T's. But in many of the cases I found, they became so proficient and efficient, but they wallowed. They wallowed, and it wasn't noticeable at first, but over a period of time you could pick up threads that they were wallowing in their illness, and wallowing when others didn't understand them or agree with them. How does wallowing affect us on the spiritual path? Well, in the early days, I found it to be counterproductive. That's looking back in retrospect. It was counterproductive because it undermined all the good that God had done for me. And that really brings me to two words: spiritual arrogance. I was guilty of spiritual arrogance because I presumed I knew more than God. And I would never dream of doing that or saying that. But in my humanity, I fell short. I fell short, and I needed help. But human nature being what it is, we sometimes use that as an excuse of not going forward, of not facing that fear. And especially wallowing. When we wallow, idle hands, idle mind, idle thoughts, scope for the evil one, my granny used to say, which was right. Because if we just sit around all day and do nothing, what's the next thing that happens? We wallow. So the way I manage my mental health issues may not be your ideal, but I've turned mine around as a prayer. And trust me, it's a struggle. It's a struggle. And when the slightest thing goes wrong, like when I developed a problem with my right leg, and I developed these ulcers from a fall through losing the power in both legs, from many years of heavy lifting as a nurse, I found myself lying on the stone, and I cried. But then an inner voice was saying, come on, get up. So I could have laid there. But then I thought, right, I'm going to laugh at this. So I started laughing. And I finally did a 3-point turn to get myself up to hold on to the trees in the garden. But I've known many who've stayed there. Poor me. Why me? Well, I used to ask that question a lot. Why me, Lord? Why have I been shackled with bipolar? And now losing the power in both legs. Why me, Lord? And then in prayer, in silence, you hear the voice, why not you? Why not you? And that's a real slap on the chops, isn't it? Why not you? But coming back to wallowing, there is a practical tool that we can use that can really nip this in the bud. And I'll share it with you in a few minutes. But first, I want to read to you something from the book about simplicity, the freedom of letting go. How convenient, the phone is ringing. Someone wants to get through. I wonder who. And it's by Richard Rohr, the great Franciscan theologian, and he says, the journey of faith demands that we let go of our image of God and our image of ourselves. But we can't do that in our head or on our own. It's done to us. The only thing we have to do is live, but live openly and honestly, letting the truth of the world get through to us. We're not converted in our heads or by sermons from the pastor. We're converted by circumstances. If we really let go of the circumstances speak to us, if we really let the circumstances speak to us, and when we let reality get through to us, then conversion doesn't take very long. The Santa Claus image of God stops working, and the masculine image of God doesn't last very long either. But he goes on to say, which is quite profound, I believe that we have, especially in the Northern European countries, transformed the gospel into self-control. On the other hand, I'm convinced that the gospel itself is about self-surrender. Self-control is a masculine way of thinking, but self-surrender is perhaps rather a feminine form of thinking. We haven't allowed God to teach us to surrender. And he says, ever since the Sermon on the Mount, the gospel and Western civilization have been on a collision course. But the collision course turned into a one-way street. And the winner wasn't Jesus. The winner was Western civilization. We've taken Jesus over and placed a crown on his head. Not a crown of thorns, but a royal crown, which he expressly rejected. But we need kings to keep England, France, and all other countries in line, especially after the Edict of Milan in 313, when Constantine made Christianity the established religion of the Roman Empire. We have read the Gospels from the perspective of power instead of from the side of the poor and the disestablished. So he taught his 12 apostles how it could be done differently. We see, for example, in the Gospel of Mark, how he tells his disciples 3 times, we must die, we must lose, we must be powerless. And each time they either don't get it or they change the subject. And the last one to catch on is Peter, the so-called prince of the apostles. By the way, this is also the only time Jesus calls one of his beloved disciples a devil, implying you haven't understood all what I'm after. Until the end of Mark's Gospel, it's always the men who don't understand what Jesus is talking about. The women, on the other hand, always understand. To die to oneself, to let go of the self, and to embrace powerlessness is all part of the journey. But you know, in my vulnerability, I offer that to God as a prayer, so that God can use my disability to touch souls. I don't profess to be a saint. I don't profess to be a holy man. I don't profess to be a teacher of knowledge. I'm me, and I want to be me. I want to be a child of God. I want to keep the pathway of communication open. And some days that's very difficult, because in my humanity I'm growing older and parts of my body's going down under, jokingly. So how do we correct the wallowing? Because, as I said, I've been guilty of wallowing, and I've had every reason to wallow. But is it productive? No, it's not. It destroys the bond of trust we have with our beloved. Because if we wallow, then we can't truly say, can we, that I've surrendered and that I trust in the love of God. So one tool that really does help me before I go to sleep is my examen of conscience. Everybody should do it. It's not just for nuns and monks. And I think of 4 letters making a word called ACTS, A-C-T-S. The first word is adoration. I just kneel in the presence of God, and I'm just mindful that I am loved by God. So I adore my God. I praise my God. And I ask my God for the outpouring of the Spirit to show me, how did I spend my day? Was it a productive day? Did I give in to myself? Did I wallow, procrastinate? Was I bad-tempered, impatient? Did I miss an opportunity to bring love and charity to another? And then we come to the contrition, where we examine our heart. And if we find that there have been areas where we have failed, we must not get disheartened and wallow. We must come as we are and say, Lord God, in my humanity I have failed today, and I ask forgiveness. I am really, really sorry. But with your help and with your grace, I shall rise above this, because you said, whatever you ask in my name, I'll do for you. So I thank you, Lord. I thank you for taking care of this and for giving me the bonus ball of courage. Thank you for making me mindful. And then we come to the letter T, representing thanksgiving. So we thank God for the day, be it good or bad, be it perfect or imperfect. We thank God for the food we have had, the air that we've breathed in to our lungs, for the running water we take for granted, for the clothes we wear, for our family and friends, our loved ones. We thank God for our being and presence on earth. We thank God for breathing the breath of life into our being and for helping us to nurture a loving relationship with God. And the last letter is S for service, bringing the whole letters together to form one beautiful word, acts. S for service means that we will bring our forgiveness through thanksgiving into service, by volunteering to do little things out of gratitude to God for what we receive. It may be going out of one's way to make a phone call to someone that we know is hurting, make a cake for someone who's ill, a few words of encouragement. There's a multiplicity of things that we can do, and being a contemplative enclosed, it doesn't stop me from being of service to others. And nor should it stop you. But if you wallow, you don't hear the words acts. What you hear is your inner voice saying, poor me. And I would say to you, yes, poor you, because you've missed the boat. You're missing the opportunity of allowing God's grace to touch you and set you free. And it doesn't matter whether you've got AIDS, inoperable cancer, mental health issues. I know there are people worse off than me, but that's not an excuse to say that I should wallow. Wallowing is counterproductive, don't you think? Well, I think so. So let us pray that the Father, Mother, God, whom we say we love, and that if our love is genuine, then we're not giving lip service to God, which many are doing. You know they are. You know they are. But if our love is not to be disingenuous, to be all-encompassing and of service to God and others, regardless of their faith, then there must be that bond of trust that when we come to God in prayer, there is a mutual understanding that A, we are loved, and B, that God asks us to trust in that love. It must never become a one-way stream. It has to be a two-way stream. If God gives to us, then obviously we have to be open to receive it. But so often God is giving it to us, but our hearts are closed. And wallowing is one of the blocks. I realize now in my journey, I wasted so many years wallowing. Poor me. Well, poor me, I hope, has been well and truly buried. And I just say, why not me, Lord? Why shouldn't I have these inconveniences? Why shouldn't I have to live with mental health issues? Yes, I know there's a stigma attached to it by society. But my mental health issues, whilst real, and I live with them, they're a prayer. I've turned them round with God's grace to become a prayer, so that God can use that prayer for another. But I get pretty impatient and exhausted mentally by those who have similar problems, but who wallow and who choose to wallow. Then we have to take the words of Jesus to our heart. If there is no welcome at the inn, give a blessing and depart. We must never empower another to stay wallowing. The Christ, who's the physician of my soul and yours, does not take prisoners. He does not take prisoners. and he will not condone wallowing. So let us bring, if we are wallowing today, let us not beat ourselves up. Let us turn it round and be more proactive by saying, Jesus, I'm guilty of wallowing, and I need your help. Not every year, but I need your help now. And I take you at your word, because you said, whatever you ask in my name, I will do it for you. And I'm challenging you, Lord. Hold true to your word, because I need your help. And I do not wish to wallow anymore. I want you to help me turn this round so that I can be of service with a grateful, trusting, loving, all-forgiving heart. I want to conclude with the lovely words of Teresa of Avila. Let your castle, your soul, become the sacred ground beneath your feet. Let the power of your soul live, the power of your soul. Listen to and follow the voice of your soul. You are not alone. No higher purpose in this life exists than to be called into a mystical relationship with the divine. The Christ is knocking on your door. I pray he has spoken to your heart through my words, but I've not come here to preach it to you. I've only come to share, and I would love to walk with you as a prayer partner. And remember, he chooses the weak, not the strong, to touch hearts. Like Mother Mary, when she appears to the children of God with a message, she always chooses the downcast, the marginalized. Rarely does she single out the learned academics, because she knows they won't wallow or procrastinate. Mother Mary knows that they will take it on board and they will act in accordance with her wishes. So let this time be a new beginning for you. With God's help, you can overcome this. But left to your own devices, as I was, you just sink into a mire of imperfectedness, and it leaves you a sorry person, bitter, twisted, angry, envious, slothful, all of those that are not virtues, and they do alienate the heart from God. You have a choice. You have free will. So rather than expect God to perform the miracle for you, God is waiting to perform the miracle, as he was for me many, many years ago, but I choose not to listen. Now I do, because I see the blessings that are attached when one denies oneself and picks oneself up off the gutter and dusts oneself down, as I have to do when I fall on the main road. Yes, it's a laughing, when you think about it. Some people would go under, but I just giggle and think, oh well, another tumble, another fall. Let's go forward in love. Let's trust in the miraculous power of God. Blessed are they who do not see God, but who trust in God. Theirs is the kingdom of heaven. That's what keeps me going. And I pray it inspires your heart today, not only to surrender yourself, but to allow God into those shadows and erase from your heart, your memory, your mind, despondency, self-pity, and wallowing. God bless you. Namaste. Please will you pray for me, so that I don't wallow, as I'll pray for you.